live from New York, it's Ask This Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ask an Engineer. It's me, Lady Ada, the engineer, broadcasting live from downtown Manhattan in our secret headquarters. We're just doing electronics non-stop. We got an exciting show for you tonight, about an hour's worth of maker, hacker, 3D printing, engineering, creative news, all sorts of cool stuff going on. We got Mr. Lady Ada here on camera control, and all the segments you know and love. So let's get right into it. Why don't you tell them what's on tonight's show, Mr. Lady Ada?
All right, on tonight's show, we'll talk about 1 year in, because it's a year ago to the day almost.
What happened?
We closed Adafruit.
Everything.
We closed Adafruit ahead of some city and state guidance to keep our team safe. But we'll just do a little bit of recap of what's been going on and more. We are still shipping smart and safe. Our entire team thanks you. These are some pre-COVID photos, and this is what has allowed us to survive for the last year. And these are some of the folks that, when you place an order, that's who you're helping out.
Yay.
So please continue to do so. And after we get the show started, we'll talk about what's ahead and more. Show and tell. People around the world showing, sharing their projects. JP was the host tonight. Lady Ada will talk about who was on the show and tell, what they had to share. Time travel, look around, world makers, hackers, artists, engineers. A little bit of a reminder for some things. And then also we're going to add a new segment, and we're going to play 2 short videos from it inside of Time Travel.
Cool.
Yeah. Python and hardware news. Going to take a look at the newsletter that we send out every single week about all the news that happens to be Python and hardware related. And there's a ton each week because Pico and the RP2040 run CircuitPython and MicroPython, so you can expect to see a lot of cool projects with that. Main New York City factory footage. Got some things from Adafruit's factory right here in Manhattan. Some 3D printing. We got DigiKey and Adafruit present. Ion MPI. This week is Ideal Tech, Swiss technology at your fingertips. Lady Ada will be talking about this week's Ion MPI. Got some new products. We got a lot of cool new products. We have Top Secret this week. We're going to take questions. You can put them in the end. If you put them in during the show at adafruit.it/discord or discord.gg/adafruit.
Try to grab them.
Just put them in again at the end. But sometimes we get through them different parts of the show, and then sometimes if the show has a lot of stuff, which is us tonight, you have to get to the questions at the end.
Yeah, we don't have any other staff. It's really just us. It's like we're doing the show, so if we don't get your question, it's because we're doing the show.
It's because we're doing the show.
It's live.
And anytime you can join all 27,000 of us in the Adafruit community on Discord. It's a 24/7 hackerspace that you can bring your grandkids to, or pretty much any kid. All right, all that and more on You Guessed It, Ask an Engineer. All right.
Cool beans.
Let's stop over to what I was going to talk about. So we're 1 year in, March 10th, 11th-ish of last year. There was straight up no good guidance. Sorry, I don't think that's a surprise. At the time, there were experts saying you don't need to wear a mask at all. There was closures talked about in some locations.
There were city officials saying, hey, go check out this really cool thing in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Like, it was not clear.
So here's what we decided to do. We decided to give our teams all the information and then make smart decisions together. So about a year ago, even before that, we had done low occupancy, staggered shifts. We were already thinking about ventilation. One interesting thing about Adafruit's building, it was built right after the pandemic of 1918.
That's right.
So one of the things about our building is the radiators. If you've lived in New York, there's like these big metal radiators in some buildings,
and they're like near the windows, and it's always like, why are they there?
And they're loud,
sense.
and they're too hot.
What's up with that?
They're too hot.
They're crazy hot. Why are they so hot?
Yeah. So
I want answers.
What happened was after the 1918 pandemic, buildings were designed with this in mind, and so they were designed to run with the heat on and the windows open. Mm-hmm. So we had some pretty good ventilation already. We had started stockpiling masks for our team, also hand sanitizer, because there really wasn't specific information. How was it getting transmitted? What was happening? So as the city started to talk about potential closures in the state, we decided to shut down a little early, and we were ahead of it by like a week or a few days or whatever. And the reason for that was it was really too challenging to figure out what was right or what wasn't. So the safest thing at the time was, well, let's just get through it And the best way to get through that was to keep everyone home as much as possible. So that's what we did. And then we were asked by the city to make face shields, and then also components for all sorts of medical devices, including ventilators. You don't hear about ventilators as much anymore, but at the time that was the scarcest thing on earth.
Yeah.
And we spent pretty much 24/7 for March and April on trying to help the city. We got named an essential business, and 1 year later, we're still around, still surviving, and we're crawling out of a year of just operating in a very different way. And the reason that we were able to do that is our community placed orders. Our staff was able to adapt to this. We did all the safety that we possibly could, and then some. We actually even have a page, adafruit.com/opensafely, where we showcase and celebrate the things that we all came up with the team on how we were going to stay safe. We put up a PDF of our protocols and more. So, to look back a year later, and so far so good. We're going to see how we do in March and April compared to last year, which we think will be better. And our next round of hiring is for our shipping department and for our fabrication departments, because we feel like the demand is there. So if you're looking for like economic indicators, looks like if there's a 100% woman-owned loan and venture capital free company like Adafruit in New York City that's hiring, that might be a good indicator of things are starting to recover. So that's what we're focused on right now, and we're going to just continue to keep doing the best we can and taking good care of our team. And thank you out there, everyone who's been purchasing stuff, because that's been really helpful. So that's where we're at 1 year later. All right. When you place an order, though, we have 50 days left in our 100 days of masking up. 16 states said we're not doing masks anymore. So, I don't know. It's a collector's item if you don't use it or need it.
Give it to your dentist. I don't know.
But we're so close with whatever low or high estimates for herd immunity that's coming up is, just wear a mask for a little bit longer. It is just a little bit longer. So hopefully our freebie mask that we send in, each order in the U.S. over $1 is helpful, or just, save it for the next thing.
Look, I would love it if at 100 days of masking we did it. We gave away these masks, and on the 100th day we hit, 70% vaccinated. That would be awesome. I don't like wearing masks. I'd be psyched to get through this and get everybody vaccinated and safe.
So you get a free mask, and then you get other free things.
Yes, I'll tell you about the freebies. So in addition to the free mask for any order over $1, so just order something that's $1. You could order something that's 25 cents, but we had to put a number in. $99 or more, you get a free Permaproto half-size breadboard, perfect for making your projects a little bit more permanent. You can take your solderless breadboard project and bring them over and solder them in place. $149 or more, you get a free STEMMA QT board. We have controllers and sensors and devices, and even I think a STEMMA QT board you can get. And you'll get a different random one from our assortment when you book an order. And if you make an account, not a guest account, we'll even keep track of which ones we've sent you, so you get a different one each time. $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping, and $299 or more, you get a free Circuit Playground Express, our favorite all-in-one development board. And people ask us, what's the best hardware to get started with? I'm just a beginner. I need it easy. I say, get one of these, Circuit Playground Express. It's so easy to get started, and they make wonderful little gifts for people, too, who are excited about learning and making.
That's a good one. Okay, and then show and tell. We switch it up with host this month. JP was this week's. Next week is Noah and Pedro. And then end of the month is Lady Ada and I. We did last week's.
Yes, thank you.
So it's mostly, and you're probably wondering, why do we do that? Well, one, probably get tired of us sometimes, but two, so that extra half an hour or so, at least right now, is so valuable. When you divide up a day and all the stuff that we need to do to run an Adafruit. So thanks team who's doing that, and also it's super fun to hang out and chat with the community. So we shouldn't hoard that all on our own.
I also think that Pedro and JP do bring a little bit of a different touch to the show and
that's the whole point of having a team.
Different, yeah. They have a different viewpoint, and that's good.
Yeah, that's why we have, and also JP not included because I met JP when I was at Make. For the most part, how we find each other as far as like Adafruit remote team members or doing some special projects together is usually through the show and tell anyways.
Yeah.
So as we restart and reboot as a country and even as a community in a lot of ways, get on the show and tell, even if we're not, hosting it. Usually,
I watch it.
Yeah,
I just don't host it.
Yeah, we'll always see every single one of them. But down the road as we continue to look for more talent to add to our open source community and team, that's a good place to show off your stuff if you want to do stuff with Adafruit down the road.
And join Discord.
Who was on Show and Tell with their show this week?
I'm glad you asked. Kicked it off with Kevin from DigiKey promoting another serving of Pi Day. So I guess on Pi Day they're going to do a video stream, and I think JP is going to be joining it. Check out digikey.com. Also check out their social media. I'm sure they have more deets there. From Adafruit team, we had Trevor come by. He's been doing a lot more with Adafruit AR, our AR kit for iOS app. Apple has this really cool AR kit thing that you can do and add overlays and augmented reality to your camera. And they've been doing some overlays. We think we just finished up the Teensy 4.1 overlay, and he did a Raspberry Pi 400 overlay. So looking at the back of the Pi 400 will tell you what all the pins are for the GPIO port. Very handy for hacking. Jepler came by and showed off a draft PR that he's been working on to implement MP3 decoding on the RP2040. The RP2040 is a Cortex M0, not M4, so it's missing a couple of the instructions you really need to do good, fast MP3 decoding. The SAMD51 can decode 2 or 3 streams at a time. The RP2040 can do audio book level. I think it was 32 kilobit per second audio. It's not full high def MP3, but it is compressed audio compared to WAV files, so you can fit a half an hour or so of audio maybe on a RP2040 board where it has a couple megs of RAM and of course megs of flash, and then maybe on SD card. We'll try out SD card or SDIO and see if we can get audio streaming from that as well. So it's a draft PR. We're still working on it. Melissa actually didn't come by. Sorry, but we'll talk about the stuff she did later. But she might. Scott came by with the QSpy sockets add-on he did for a Feather RP2040, so he can hack around with different QSpy chips to try out trying to optimize the second boot state execute in place flash definition thing, which if you've watched our streams, you've seen us just slam into like a brick wall. We're going to solve it. And he also made this cool board that takes a SparkFun micromod and then has these little socket flex PCB adapters. I'm going to call them Scott sockets, but I don't know. It's kind of a neat little plug and play system. Toddbot got a cutie pie and a round TFT and made a little locket to display images of cats, mostly. Everyone loves that. And also a rotary encoder project. Bill Binko from AT Maker is making head control mice. So an open source way of using a head-mounted IMU to control a mouse, and then by dwelling on something, you can select it. So using this with speech boards allows people who may not be able to touch a speech board to just move their head and look at something, and then it gets selected, so they can actually form sentences with speech boards, which is really nifty. And he said usually these are extremely expensive and they're not easily hackable. So having an open source version could be awesome for the accessibility community, which we always love to see. Liz made a Sailor Moon spinning crescent moon circuit playground board. I actually didn't quite catch exactly what it's for, but she's a really big fan of Sailor Moon. I think she wanted to have maybe her own Sailor Moon display or headdress. I'm not exactly sure. I gotta go back and watch some Sailor Moons. And then Daniel made his first circuit. It's a massive arcade button connected to a microcontroller that acts like a foot pedal talk switch. So on Zoom calls or other video calls, the audio is only demuted when you press with your foot, so you don't accidentally leave your mic on. And then you just have to remember to press the foot pedal or press the button when you want to speak. But if you're used to push to talk type systems, he basically remade that for a computer. Now show and tell.
All right. It's part of our Adafruit Live series of shows. We do this every week, so if it's 8 p.m., let's ask an engineer. 7:30, Show and Tell. Those are our Wednesday shows, in addition to Noah and Pedro's 3D Hangouts every Wednesday. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then on Sunday, we do Desk of Lady Ada. And then this week on Desk of Lady Ada, we showed a few different things, including something we're going to show for Top Secret later, I think.
Yes, it's a top secret, so don't ask.
Yeah.
But we also do a lot of keyboard stuff.
Yeah, so
Keyboards.
a lot of keyboard things.
Keyboard hacking.
And that got us to the great search.
Which is Cherry Max switches.
Is that part I need? The great search with DigiKey.
Yeah, so it turns out you can get Cherry MX switches on the DigiKey site, and you show exactly how to do that.
And Milmax sockets. These are like small solder-in sockets that let you mechanically attach and detach Cherry MX switches. So these, I saw that a lot of people were doing like group buys on Reddit and other forums, but you don't have to. You can actually just go to DigiKey and just buy Cherry MX blacks or blues right now. So either clicky blues or the smooth linear black switches.
Yeah. So if you want to see a lot of the in-progress stuff, so whatever we work on during the week, Sunday night is kind of our recap, Desk of Lady Ada, and then Lady Ada does a specific feature, The Great Search with DigiKey, brought to you by DigiKey, and she uses all our good powers of engineering to help you find what you're looking for on a gigantic site like DigiKey. Okay, other live shows that we do, Tuesday was JP's product pick. This is the recap. I'm going to show this in a second. And the cool special thing about this is we do a live video from the product page. It's embedded inside the product page. And we do a discount while we're doing it. So that's, kind of like, how we used to go to concerts. We'll be going to concerts again. But, that's, you can always get...
Until then, watch JP's shows.
You can always get digitally downloaded music, but there's something special about being there and participating in something live and being in the chat. You can get the product there. And we also sell JP as an NFT. And so you get to...
What? JP's top hits?
Yeah, JP is...
I'm going to bid right now.
He's an NFT. And that's kind of our new business model.
Don't give people ideas. They're totally going to
No, I know. I'm on a mailing list. It was an email list, and it was about open source hardware and patents and all that stuff. And I said, hey, the open source hardware community may as well get ahead of what might happen with some of these interesting experiments that are melting the planet or ripping off artists or great for the artists, all these different,
who knows?
Yeah. So that's a little bit of an unknown, but JP for sure, you can watch the show and you can use the discount code.
I think he's an SFT. He's a super fungible token.
Maybe. All right, so here's a little bit of a highlight from this week's.
AW9523, 16-pin GPIO expander on I2C, and LED drivers that use constant current. 16 pins arrayed around the top and the bottom. There's, I think, 11 on the top and 5 on the bottom there. And all those pins are in pairs because they each have that V-in for the voltage. 16 little 3mm red LEDs plugged into the board. And as you can see, I'm doing some different little fades and lighting them in some sequences, turning them on and off. Right now they're getting brighter, 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 and then they'll drop down. Use the little Stemma QT connectors. You could plug in up to 4 of these on one microcontroller, and then you'd be able to run buttons, LEDs galore. That's the product pick of the week this week.
Again, JP's workshop is on Thursday, and if you saw the show and tell or saw his last video, there's a really neat technique that JP shows on how to use this really neat reflective material and our little NeoPixel ring, and it produces better results. Like we use a green screen for...
I know, I kind of want to get rid of our green screen and give it to someone and then use the system because it's so much...
We could. We have an issue because we have like 2 there, and we have a pretty good light source. But generally speaking, and I'm going to show the highlight clip, fully expect Elgato to have this as a kit soon.
Totally.
Today is March 10th, 2021.
All right.
At 8:21 p.m.
Okay.
And by the way, they should. This isn't just like, we thought of it first. We're not the type of people who care about that, because guess what? Like, it doesn't matter if you thought of something first. Who can you bring it out to the widest number of people? Can you do open source? Even a bonus.
Here's another thing about it that's really nice is you can change the color. So sometimes
Yeah,
you
that's why
don't
it's good.
want green, because like I wear my Raspberry Pi shirt, it's got like the green, and so it like gets green screened out. So you can dial in different colors. So you can have a blue screen or like a purple screen or a teal screen, whatever, or orange screen. Whatever the color is, you can change it, and it looks perfect, and there's no shadows. So I think it's cool. Digital green screens is totally the way to go.
And so, I'm going to show the little video in a second. So one of the cool things about it is it shines the light on the screen. It's super reflective. 3M, who makes like everything amazing out of materials, the light bounces back directly, and it makes a really even green screen or blue screen, or if you can even, pop out other colors if you wanted to. And the neat thing about it is you can get really close to it, and the shadow and the wrinkles don't seem... It's more forgiving.
Yeah.
And
because it's just so bright.
Yeah, so I think like Elgato, who has things for gamers and streamers, they have this thing where you lift it up. It's like the projector. You remember in school they pull down a projector and over the chalkboard? Well, these are ones that they sit on the ground and you pull them up. I fully expect there to be a reflective material one at some point. They'll probably do it.
Yeah, what it does
and
is
then
that
you'll have a light source, because they already have a light.
yeah,
that they sell.
normally another thing that happens is when we have the green screen, if you have glasses especially, the bright camera light bounces off the green screen, and then the green kind of like shimmers onto your skin, or like your hair gets kind of shimmery if it's all shiny, or your glasses, they start having green reflection. And what's cool about this material is because it's so retro, like reflects in every direction, you don't get that bounce off.
So,
it's so cool.
So check this out. It's really neat. And I think I've been really busy. I think JP's watching the show, so I'll just talk to JP through the show. Hey, JP.
Hi, JP.
So,
Well, he's on the blockchain, so like you can talk to him through the blockchain now.
That's right. So one of the
Put
cool...
him there.
JP will probably remember this. So back like peak Make Magazine days, we would see things in maker fairs, or I'd be posting stuff on Make, or even when I'd started Hackaday, I saw this same trend where whatever makers are kind of experimenting with, there's a commercialized product of it later, and that's a good sign. And so if you're really interested in technology, and you want to do startups or just be part of like new inventions or see all this stuff or actually be able to build it yourself, this is where it happens first. And this is like one specific one that it reminds me of, because I'm like, oh yeah, like there was a bunch of things that we all did. We're like, oh cool, let's try this thing out, because like we were writing about it in Make, or maybe earlier at the time.
No, I feel like we're
Hackaday.
back there like 15 years ago.
I think so. So watch this highlight, and it really is magical and something you can build yourself. Okay, so if you want to see a glimpse of the future, or if you want to help build it, JP Show is tomorrow. All right, time travel, look around the world of makers, hackers, artists, engineers. Good news, bad news. Good news, there will be an AdaBox coming out in April. Bad news, you can only sign up for it now because our slots are full. So do sign up though, because
we do get, when we charge the cards, about 100 slots open up. So do sign up and you'll get notified. So it's not too late, but you'll have to just listen.
So my suggestion is sign up, because once we process the first rounds, especially over the last year, a lot of people moved, a lot of people are moving back, address changes, credit cards got canceled, or they did something. So you'll have a shot, but you need to sign up.
And you're probably wondering, hey, why don't you do that thing like when you go on like a plane where they overbook the flight, because like 10 people always don't show up. So like they just book an extra 10 people because nothing bad could ever happen, right? Well, we don't do that. Just like we don't do back orders, we don't overbook the AdaBox. We only sell the slots that we have available because we want to make sure that there's no risk of anyone not getting it because of overbooking.
Yeah.
Also, I've been bumped from a flight once, and I'll never forgive United.
Yeah. So this next portion of time travel that we're pleased to announce is Phil B, Paint Your Dragon, who works with Adafruit, has for a really long time, and specifically with Lamore on a lot of the board designs that you've seen,
Including the Cyberdeck.
including the Cyberdeck, which we're going to show tonight, has been doing these little vignettes. And I thought I was going to put this in maybe the open source hardware section. Then I was going to put it in a separate section. But this is kind of just like a glimpse of what's going on. And it's a time lapse of sorts, too. So I'm going to play these back to back. This one is designing a PCB, the differences with Eagle. And then if you're going to use something like Illustrator because you want to do different graphics. And then the origins and some of the silk that we did for Circuit Playground. So take it away, Phil A.
Here's a board designed entirely in Eagle versus one with a custom silk screen design in Adobe Illustrator. Check out those fonts. The process starts in Eagle by enabling a specific set of layers I found help with the layout. There's a print a PDF option you'd think would be just the thing, but the output is weird and junky. I can't do anything with this. Trick is to use Eagle's DXF export option. I've modified the script a little bit, and Illustrator is able to make better sense of these files. The DXF file only contains lines, arcs, and triangles, so there's an entire process here of converting this into solid shapes that we can then design on top of. This is like 15 to 20 minutes of work, which has been compressed into a few seconds here. Finally, we have something resembling the physical board, and next we can start designing our custom silk screen on top of this.
I've been doing some videos about silk screens lately, and I just wanted to tell a story about fonts. Some of these boards are so tiny, you don't really get to choose your font. You just try a few things, and whatever's even legible at that size, that's what you run with. And then other times you get to spread out, and you can actually theme things a bit, like a transit theme or some Art Deco stuff going on. But I want to talk about Circuit Playground for a second. And this was designed with education in mind. And I had this nightmare scenario that someone was going to be like, oh yeah, hey, this is kid stuff. We got to use like crayon fonts on there or Comic Sans, yeah. And I'm like, hell no. Because believe it or not, I was 10 years old once, and I remember, you're doing science, you want like some crisp Helvetica or like that Euro-style extended bold or the NASA worm logo. Because you don't want this patronizing crayon stuff. You're doing science. So that's why it has this no-nonsense look to it.
And now you know. So that's our time travel segment for
half
this
the
week.
battle.
Yeah. All right. Python on hardware news. Okay, Lady Ada, this week.
Yeah.
So 6.2.0 beta 3 is released.
We're doing a bunch of betas, but we're also just fixing so much stuff. We added the second USB serials, so if you want to have like a non-REPL serial port, we've added that. We've added some bitmap tool. Thank you so much for the community for adding these contributions. I've done a lot of display I/O work. I've also seen a lot of stuff happen with label, presence port, bug fixes in ESP32S2 and RP2040. Those are going through a lot of churn. We're even planning our next beta already because we're just fixing so many bugs and adding so much stuff. So, thank you everybody for testing the latest builds. We're getting so many more contributors, and it's really awesome to see people coming in and saying, here's what I want CircuitPython to do, and giving us code to do it, or reviewing code, or bug fixing, or bug reporting. It's a team effort.
And if you have an RP2040 in some form, like a Pico or now a Feather, the good news is you can get lots of updates. There's lots of enhancements, lots of fixes, and more. I did see a discussion on Twitter, which is never really a good idea.
I don't even know why you're starting with that.
Someone was saying they were trying to compare like CircuitPython and MicroPython, and the two have different goals.
Yeah.
But one of the things that someone said is like, oh, there's always a lot of activity going on in CircuitPython land because we're doing a lot of updates and we're supporting a lot of hardware. So I'll say this.
And that's good.
I'll say this. There's always trade-offs, and the way that we're doing CircuitPython is you want the easiest and the latest and greatest hardware support for everything. So that's why MicroPython, for instance, one of the things that people do is if they're making hardware for it, they'll fork MicroPython, and that's like frozen in time for their thing, and then they're not doing any more updates on it. Where CircuitPython, we're trying to get as many boards as possible that support CircuitPython, that support all these libraries, that support all the hardware, and grow that ecosystem. So you get, and anytime you're putting CircuitPython on something that supports it, you're getting all the latest
And
everything.
look, I mean, it's good. We're fixing a lot of bugs. I mean, people are saying like this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and we actually go and fix it. You know, we also added like MP3 support today, which is really cool.
That's
like
cool.
that's that's a PR, and so that will be part of the next beta release. It's just Scott, who is the project lead, made the decision really early, and I've sort of been reluctantly but now enthusiastically interested in his decision, which is it's better to have lots of changes if it means a development cycle keeps going than to let the project stagnate, because people are, and this is kind of true, there's contributors are attracted to projects that have contributors. If I go to, and look, it's true, if I go to a GitHub repo and I haven't seen any events occurring, any pull requests or issues closed in the last 5 years, I'm going to assume the project's dead, right? And so if you see like, wow, there's a lot of activity, people are contributing and responding and moving, I think that will attract people who want to have their contributions merged in and developed on. And I think the CircuitPython team does that really well.
The hardware that you have gets tons of free updates forever. If it supports CircuitPython, every time there's an update to CircuitPython, you get new features.
Yeah.
So, and new hardware supported. So I just wanted to because we have this section that we talk about Python on hardware.
And it's a new beta release.
This is really good news, because if you like things like the Pico and the any of the RP2040 stuff, any of the feathers, or SparkFun has their version of a feather and it supports CircuitPython. Like there's so many things you get with this now that we think that we're going to keep doing this. Like the more new features and the more hardware supported, the better. And keeping that vibe of it's as easy as possible. And as the RP2040 launched, one of the things that we looked at is, so when people want to do something fast and easy and learn from, what are they using? They're using CircuitPython. So with that being said, the Feather RP2040 is out. This is one of the easiest, best ways to explore this new chip from Raspberry Pi, and then also use CircuitPython, and then you get the full Feather ecosystem.
Yes, and StemMQT plugin and 8 megabytes of
Yeah.
flash. It's still this. I don't want to call it beta. I'm pretty sure the hardware is good to go. But I'm always interested. People, if you find any weirdnesses with it, open up issues or let us know in the community. Because this is our first board with this chip, and the first board of every chip is always kind of where we're like, oh, hey, look at that. We didn't realize, XYZ, and now we do. So I'm doing this board definitely helped me design the Itsy Bitsy and Cutie Pie. I had to do a revision of each because of things that I learned.
And just to bring this back, so if you did a bunch of CircuitPython work on the the Nordic NRF52840, that code, besides the Bluetooth part, works on a RP2040.
Yeah.
So this
the
is
PWM-IO is actually the same thing. So the code that does the audio over PWM is the same. I mean, we had to adapt it for the hardware, but that was first introduced on the NRF52840, and now it's available on this chip too.
So I haven't counted the number of chipsets, but it's probably
6 or
the
the STM F4. I mean, that's like hundreds of different chips, right? Because there's like a bunch of them. But of families, I think we support a good like eight families of chips.
Yeah, and then there's things like the ESP32S2 and ESP.
Yeah, that's a family.
32.
There's the
C.
Well, the C3 we're
Right.
probably not going to support quite yet. The S3 will support. I think there's actually a PR for the S3. So we're moving along.
CircuitPython was on Tom's Hardware Piecast. Scott was on it.
You blew their minds.
Talked to Les, who we just sent a Feather over from the UK. And Scott also talked about maybe running CircuitPython directly on a Raspberry Pi one day. Python 3.10086 is available for testing. It's big news if you're into Python. Deep Dive with Scott is this Friday. News around the web, you can check out some of the projects. This is
So
getting
many
started with
Picos
CircuitPython,
and
with the Pi Pico, NeoPixel LEDs.
keyboards and bananas.
Yeah. And, the other,
Cutie Pie.
the other
Love the
thing,
Cutie Pie.
a lot of folks are exploring Moo because it's an easy way to do things with CircuitPython and these boards. More Cutie Pie projects. Braincraft Hat running Raspberry Pi Pico using Pi to 0 adapter, an adapter for a Pi Pico on a feather wing.
Look at this cute keyboard.
Yeah, this is a Raspberry Pi Pico on CircuitPython. This is a keyboard. Again, this is what we see happening. If you want to do a keyboard and you have a Pico, the easiest way to do it right now and to build on top of and expand it that's open and you just get all the support has been CircuitPython. So we're happy to see that getting out there. Here's a light sensor. This is using MicroPython. This is a feather wing little servo.
Oh, it's the Dynamixel.
Yeah. And then Scott's been doing the rounds.
Cool.
Simple Electronics Podcast, number 14. And then this is
It's Lars.
Yeah, this is a little round display.
The tab I just showed on the show and tell.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's another Pico with a display. Look, that's going to work great with CircuitPython because we have great display support.
So as you can tell, there's a theme. If you really like keyboards and you really like
Displays.
Pico, and you really
We
like
have
displays,
really good native display support for CircuitPython. Believe me, it's like it's not going to be as low level, but the high level stuff is amazing. I mean, you can have objects in front of other objects, and we do clipping and bitmaps and beautiful fonts, all this stuff, which is a lot harder than you'd think. Actually, getting good font support, but it's all in there.
Yeah.
And we've been working on it for years.
So you'll continue to see a bunch of projects and more. There's a neat Python comic
That make
that's in there. You can see all of our guides, all of our libraries. We are up to 303, and we still have a couple more events that are coming up. We're sponsored the Open Hardware Summit.
Also coming up.
We just sent cutie pies. So if
Swag bag.
you're part of the Open Hardware Summit this year, the swag bag will have a cutie pie.
Cool.
PyCon's coming up. And more. So that is our Python and hardware news this week. Lots of stuff going on.
Nice.
Okay, we're an open source hardware company. To prove it, we publish
We have some guides.
our source code, our schematics, our files, and we have guides and videos for each thing. We have 2,433 Lady Ada. What's on the big board this week?
I'm glad you asked. Starting from the top left, the AMG 8833 thermal camera. It got the guide isn't new. The guide was updated because we QTified the AMG 8833. It's now plug and play compatible. I'm sure people love that. You can make thermal cameras even easier now. We got that guide from JP that everyone's loving, the retro reflective green screen light ring with a cutie pie and CircuitPython. Noah and Pedro made a mega guide with Liz. It's a Raspberry Pi Pico powered LED arcade button MIDI controller. Sometimes these are called MIDI fighters. There's like a product called the MIDI fighter, and this is kind of our take on it. It's different because it has like an OLED and a switch and a Pico, and it's open source and it's CircuitPython. But if you want to make like a cool like drum machine sequencer, these arcade buttons that light up. This Raspberry Pi Pico powered build. It's a big build, but it's not. They did a really good job documenting it. I think people could do it. If it's not maybe their first project, maybe their third project, you could build one of these. Tim Seafoamy guy did an awesome guide about updates to the display text library in CircuitPython. Again, displaying text beautifully. I know Steve Jobs had something to say about that, but we did a lot of work to add native font support and graphics support and all sorts of ways of displaying text beautifully. We've also done a lot of optimizations to make it faster than ever. So if you're like, I used it a couple of years ago and the BDF fonts load really slow, try it again. We've really sped it up, 80-90% reduction by using PCF fonts and some low-level helpers. Also got that guide for the Feather RP2040 that came out. We got a quick start guide using the Pico with Airlift. This is by request. A lot of people we saw on Discord were having problems or were curious about how could they add Wi-Fi to the Raspberry Pi Pico. And we're like, oh yeah, you can do that with Airlift. And they're like, I don't even know where to start. So we have a quick start guide. It just gets you going with like the wiring for the Pico. So you get like the SPI pins going right. And then how to make your secrets file for your Wi-Fi password and usernames and all that, and connecting to Adafruit I/O. So it's quick and dirty, but if you want to add Wi-Fi to a Pico, it will definitely get you going. And then of course last week's project we had getting started with Raspberry Pi Pico guide update from Kattni. I think we added a internal temperature sensor page, and Aaron did a shadow box project last week.
Okay, let's do some main New York City factory footage. So these are the
Feather RP
Feather
2040s.
RP 2040s.
We made more this week, so people are like, "Wait, that looks like from last week." That's because we made more. And here they are coming out of the machine. So our first run, we learned a lot, and then second run, we've been tweaking our capabilities to improve the yield because it's a very fine pitch chip.
Yeah. And then this was just a still.
That's the 3D
Of
printer,
the
but it's kind
3D
of cool.
printer.
I like the HDR
That's
looking
right.
thing. Nice.
Here's us making some soil
We
sensors.
made a ton of soil sensors. So
Yeah.
there you go. There you go. Pop it off. This is the board loader. It loads the boards into the machines. That's all it does.
Here's more.
Here they come out of the oven. And here they come out of the oven in 100% speed. This is not sped up. This is actually how long it takes.
What is
What's what?
the C15960 on the side of the panel?
That's the CID. That's the component ID.
Yeah.
So we label them so probably the first panel so we know what it is because all the feathers look really similar. So we want to know which board it is.
Yeah, one thing while we're going over these things is we built our own inventory system. We had
Yeah.
to. And so when you see there's product IDs and then there's component IDs, CID, PIDs.
And then if you look in your products, you'll see the work order ID. So the W number, that's the
Yeah.
work order. So we can keep track. If there's something that goes amiss, we can track down every product from that work order.
All right, and wouldn't be New York City factory footage unless it was
It's a rebar party.
footage from outside our window. This is the Disney building going up across the street. Kind of cool. A sunset that you can see that happened like right near the machines,
Behind the momentum.
and
Shadows.
nice sunset
That's a nice sunset.
in New York.
Ooh, that's nice.
And that's factory footage. All right, 3D printing with Noah and Pedro. They're back with a video next week, but we have a speed up every week, so we're gonna play this one. All right, learn how to make all this stuff and more on 3D Hangouts with Noah and Pedro. Everyone's there. All right, it's time. DigiKey and Adafruit present. This week's Eye on NPI is from Ideal Tech. Lady Ada, what is the NPI, new product introduction from Ideal Tech, brought to you by DigiKey, this week?
Okay, so you heard me talk about Ideal Tech. We've done tools by them before. They I think the wire strippers we did a couple months ago, and I saw this pop up, and I really like those wire strippers. So they released an update to their PCB like rework stations. This is what it looks like, and I've got one here, and I'll demo it live as well. So these are PCB rework holders, and they've got a lot of little details, right? So like, chances are you probably have a PCB vise or something, and they're low cost and they're small. But if you're actually going into like doing production work and you have to do a lot of soldering, there's a lot of little details here that can save you a lot of time. So start off, these holders are available in 3 sizes, which I will colloquially call kind of large, big, and huge. So I got the smallest one, and it is still quite large. They have multiple railings. They're not designed for a single PCB. You're supposed to, or expected to, I think, put a panel of PCBs, or you put in 10 to 20 at a time because you're soldering or reworking a bunch of the same board all at once. And so that's why they're so large. But the largeness also gives them a certain strength. Like they're easier to work with because they're kind of heavy, and that heaviness makes them stable. So just be aware that there's 3 in this series is the PCSA holder series. So what's interesting about this is that there's a lot of like hinges, and I'll demo this live because it's kind of, even the data sheet, even though it's good, it's hard to really see what's going on. But there's basically these removable parts and these hinges, so you can move the work into a couple different positions. It can be like upright completely, 80-degree angle, like 70-degree angle, and then like a 30-degree angle. And each angle has its own, and like completely flat, and each angle has its own like rework speciality. So if you're like inserting connectors, you might want to move it into one orientation, insert all the connectors, and flip it into another one. It's really well made. I really like the quality. It's got steel that's painted. It's got some aluminum. It's got some precision fit plastic. One of the things I really like about it is like there's a certain kind of detail to the precision of the parts that you can tell. Like when you're moving the railings, they have these really nice thumb screws that just are very easy to loosen and very easy to tighten. Same with like the hand screws. Like nothing is hard to use. It's all like you can use even if you're wearing gloves or if you're like trying to do like 3 things at once. And also when you're adjusting the railings, they don't get so loose that they are hard to position. Like you can loosen them just enough that you put them where you want. They're a little bit stiff, so they don't move around, and then you tighten them to really fit them into place completely. So let's go to the overhead because I want to show off the thing, because it's big enough and it's kind of complicated enough. So first off, so this, I should turn this around. This is how you normally mount it. I'll give myself a little bit more angle space here. So these are the railings, and you loosen them with these thumb screws, and then these railings move up and down. And so, you can get extra railings if you want to include more hardware. But like, let's say I have this, panel of PCBs. In here is a groove, so you can slot this into the groove here, and into the groove there. And then, this has a little bit of play, but then you tighten the screws to fix it in place, and then this is now not moving, which is really good. There's also this like hinge system, so you're not going to be able to see it as well, but basically I can position this in a couple different ways for easy rework. And then the thing that is really cool, so I'll show you what I really like about this. This is I think my favorite part. So this whole thing flips over, and then you're like, what is this like Swiss? What's going on with this Swiss thing? So this is the foam overlay holder, and this is what holds through-hole parts together. And what's neat is that there's this button here, and when you press this button, this just snaps right open. So you don't have to even unscrew it. So this foam piece comes out. This is anti-static foam. You can get replacement foam, and this is like, it's hard to explain, but it's firm but soft, right? It's like a mattress, It's got a little bit of softness at the top, but then it's got this firm foam in between to give it, strength. So what you want to do is, hold on. So let's say you're like, okay, I have to do a bunch of through-hole soldering. So I'm just going to, mimic it. I'm going to do one piece. But let's say I have to, I'm making these cyber decks. Each one of them has a header piece, and the header has to be soldered in, here. I would fill in all parts of the panel. Of course, I'd put 6 in. And then here's a common thing, if you've soldered through whole parts, how do you turn it over to solder without the parts falling over? So sometimes you hold it with your finger and then your finger gets burned, or you use like a piece of tape, but then you have to deal with this tape. The tape comes loose, the thing comes askew, and now you got to rework it. So that's where the foam comes in. So the cool thing about the foam is once you've placed all of your through-hole components, and then, of course, this could have USB and Ethernet and whatever headers you want. And then this foam piece slots in, so this part hooks into place, and then that button, you remember I pushed that button, I push it again, and now the foam is down, and then I can just lift this, rotate it around, and then re-slot it in place. I'm going to give you a close-up of this. And now I can work on the board, and the foam is holding the through-hole pieces in place, and because the foam is just soft enough, it's not shaking around.
I'm going to just show. So because we did it made sense to show it on the top view so you can see things. But here's a side view of.
Oh yeah, so I'll
stuff.
if you can hold it carefully.
Yeah.
I'll show. This rotates around.
Do you want me to hold on to that, or do you want me to?
No, like this.
Yeah.
Thank you, kind assistant. And then
Yeah.
this hooks into place, and then I push this button to release the foam holder.
Yeah.
And then this hooks out, and then you see the through-hole piece. It's kept perfectly pressured in place, so you don't have that annoyance of like, even with USB connectors, they snap in, but then they get a little bit loose, or like if you try to touch, one corner at a time, it can be a little uneven. This way you get like perfect even pressure across all of your through-hole components. So this is excellent if you're doing a lot of through-hole soldering, because you place all the parts, you snap the foam over, you flip it over, right, and it's very fast. There's no work that you have to do with it, and then you can solder in all of your through-hole parts all at the same time, very, very easily. So this is what it's really good for. It's also good for rework, but like the foam thing makes it like mwah, perfect chef kiss for through-hole components.
Yeah. And it's available on DigiKey site.
That's right. So they have 3 different sizes, like I said. So the 3 sizes, they're basically the same price. There's only like maybe $20 difference between them. So, get the one that's the right size for your boards and your panels. Not necessarily, you don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm going to get a smaller one because it's cheaper. They're basically the same price. So just get the one that's the right size for you. So, I got the small one, and you can see how big it is. It is quite large. But, by the time you insert a panel in it, and it's not as big as you think.
I'd say it's about the size of the classic Dell laptops from the late 90s.
It's totally got that,
It's the pizza box laptop size.
It is actually, by the way, personal pan pizza. It's like a personal pizza size.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But
So there you go.
It's not too big, not too small.
And I really like all the thumb screws, by the way. Like, good thumb screws, they add a little bit more to the cost, but boy, is it worth it. So this is really, really nice. I'm going to hand this over to the
Yeah, do you think it'll maintain pressure on parts if they're different heights?
Yes. That's why the foam is so good. The foam is just soft enough that it conforms over. So I'm not worried
even when
about
they're different heights. It'll still keep
I
them
think it'll be fine. I mean, look, if it's a short piece right next to a big piece, maybe not. But like for something, say like a Raspberry Pi, where you've got Ethernet and USB, and then you've got a header, I think it would be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and short URLs there, and also the product ID that you can look it up on DigiKey site 214 PCA SA1 N and D.
Look at this
and
graphic
the short
design.
URL is digikey.com/short/B5NTP2JD. And this video is their tutorial video from their website. I have the sound turned off
Yeah.
because it has a bunch of music, and that's problematic
true.
on
Okay.
YouTube. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but they have some pretty good videos and resources on how to assemble it and how to use it.
Yeah, and all the stuff that I just showed, if you want to see it, but done on a large table by someone with really nice manicure, check out this video. It's on the Ideal Tech page. It's also on the DigiKey page. So if you go to the DigiKey site, you can see this video and watch it in all its glory.
All right, and with that is NPI. Okay.
All right, I gotta put this away so I can do new products.
Yeah, put that away,
Okay, put this away.
and then we'll go into new
Okay,
products.
put it into storage mode.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, PCSA from Ideal Tech. Okay,
All right.
thanks everybody.
Ready to kick it off?
Yeah, let's do this thing.
All right, new products.
New.
Okay, first up.
Okay, this is such a weird thing, but I just thought it was really useful for maybe some weird purposes. So this is like, you have a KVM, and it's like a smart switch that lets you like share one keyboard and mouse and monitor with 2 computers. Well, imagine if you had that, but it was only a USB port and it was totally mechanical. So it's a weird thing, right? It's got, so here's a good image. So it's got 2 USB-A plugs, and they can go into, just stick it. They got two USB-A plugs, and each one can plug into a computer, and then you can plug in one peripheral device into that socket, and then the switch. I know it says like on off, it's like 1-0, but what it really is, it switches between the two. What is this used for? So for me, I actually was using this for testers. So I would like have a board plugged into a Raspberry Pi, and then I wanted to like plug it into my computer, and I'd be kind of like plugging it back and forth. With this, I just used the switch. Now, one thing I'll say is it's a little bit of a hacky way of doing it. So power is connected through to both boards. So just like that's not usually not a problem. USB ports don't usually mind having some back power. The switch is only for the two data lines. So it's a dual pole, double throw, whatever switch. So it's only the two data lines that are swapped over. That said, it does work. It's funky, it's weird, but I think it's not. I wouldn't put it into like a finished product. But for R&D or for some situation where you're like, look, I really just want to connect one Arduino between two computers or something real fast, I'd feel okay saying like, hey, this is a good little development tool for that. So I don't know what I call it, like a micro KVM, a USB switcher, something like that.
Okay. Next up.
Okay, next up, so while this is setting up, I'm going to plug in this. This is oh my goodness, I actually don't remember the name of it. It's this Raspberry Pi case, and it's the Pro model of the Pi case, and it's designed for the Raspberry Pi 4, although I think you can fit other Raspberry Pis in it, and an official Raspberry Pi 7-inch monitor. So the monitor you see here, it doesn't come with it. If you have a Raspberry Pi, you see the Raspberry Pi 4 plugged in on the left there. The 7-inch monitor, you connect them together, put them into the case, and you basically have your own like all-in-one Raspberry Pi enclosure with a touch screen, and it's like really beautiful, nice display and case with a camera in the front. So you can even have it like you can make your own little like a camera web camera type like interface thing where you have like video transmitting over the camera over the display going back and forth. So that's kind of the upgrade, is it has the camera slot, and the USB port comes out for power, but the SD card is not exposed, so people can't rip it out. So this would be like a little micro kiosk maybe. So let's go to the overhead and I'll show it off. So this is kind of nice. So you've got here the touch screen, so
I'm
it's
going to focus that in a little better.
it's so bright, so it's a little confused.
Yeah.
But you've got the 7-inch monitor here, and it's a touch screen. Like you can see, I can touch and select stuff. USB and Ethernet for the Raspberry Pi 4 on the back. This is a really nice metal bottomed, so it's a little bit heavy hinge. So you can hinge this, and it's adjustable, and then you screw it in place. Another nice extra, it comes with a fan you can use to cool down the insides, and there's like lots of little mounting holes on the back with venting. This is where the USB comes out. So there's a little USB. If you we go back to the contents, you'll see there's a little USB adapter thingy so that the USB comes out nicely on the side, and inside it gets routed into the power port. But basically, it's the camera slot that makes this kind of special. So you can mount a Raspberry Pi camera here, and then use it as like I said, like a kiosk with a webcam for like AV interfacing, or like a mini video station type project. So if you go here, so you can see it comes with all the hardware and the cables to route internally all the camera, and then there's hardware as well for mounting all the pieces together. So you do have to put it together. It doesn't come with a Raspberry Pi 4 or the display, so you just have to make sure you grab one of those. But it does come with the fan.
Okay, next up.
Next up, we've updated our 2.13-inch tricolor e-ink displays. It's very similar to the previous e-ink displays. You can see here, it shows stuff even when it's not powered. It's got an SD card slot, built-in RAM, so you can use it with everything from Arduino Uno up to like a Raspberry Pi. We've got e-ink libraries for Python, CircuitPython, and Arduino. What's nice about this is we've updated it to be higher resolution. It's now 250 by 122 tricolor pixels. So I don't remember the previous resolution. I think it was like 200 by 100 or something. So you get a little bit of a boost in resolution, so you get more pixels. With that, the chipset has changed slightly. It's now the SSD 1680. So it is a new product ID because you can't reuse the exact same code as before. You do need to recompile the code for the new SSD 1680 chipset. This is unfortunately a thing about e-ink displays is that the chipsets keep changing. For the user, it doesn't matter, but just for the developer, they will have to recompile it.
All right. Next up, I think might be besides that little tiny keyboard that we showed during the Python on hardware section. This might be either the cutest or second cutest thing we showed tonight.
This is so cute.
This is a miniature hot plate.
It's a miniature hot plate.
And-
It's way smaller than you think.
And before, I was gonna say, so yeah, you could look at these photos and just be like, well,
how big is it?
Is
I
it the
don't
size
know.
of a refrigerator?
Is it like a power supply?
Or is it like?
It's
yeah.
really small.
So what board is that you have?
So this is like a sort of a generic.
Okay, so it's like a
EEPROM
little stemma size board.
STEM QT board.
Okay,
so
so look
this
how
is
look
it.
at this tiny.
It's very, very,
This is
very,
tiny.
very small. And here I'll
Are you gonna
angle
actually
it.
do it?
Yeah, I just plug it in real fast.
Okay, so you know what we can do is we can try to angle this a little bit here,
Yeah.
so folks can see.
Well, yeah, I just thought I'd quickly show it. So there's some buttons on the back. So I'll show the user interface. There's A and B buttons so that you can check the manual, which I
Yeah.
totally haven't read yet.
If you want to make a cutie pie factory,
Yeah.
this is how you do
It's
it.
basically, if your boards are about 1 inch by 1 inch, this is perfect for you. So it's booting up. It's got a little OLED display. This is by Minware. They make a lot of really high-end tools. They have like smart tweezers and they have the smart tweezer we just put in. They have the smart soldering iron. No, is it doing the thing? Maybe my power supply isn't good enough. Hold on. Let's try again. It was just working. Okay, there you go. I think I just wasn't plugging in all the way. Okay, so don't forget to plug in the USB all the way. So there's settings, and then there's heat up. So if I select heat up, it'll heat. One of the things I thought was so adorable about this is this little LED. It's a kind of a like indicator of what the temperature is. So as this heats up, and you see it's like 35, 36 degrees.
Yeah, once you start using electronics on it, don't start melting s'mores on it, by the way. But
Yeah.
if you're just going to make a s'more melter, yeah.
Just
you can-
s'more.
Just s'mores. Don't mix it with electronics.
So as this is heating up, it's getting to like 60 degrees C, and you see it's turning yellow. So the LED does warn you how hot it is. So this, white, okay, like definitely dangerous. And then I think it gets to red when it's really hot. So it works. It will reflow boards.
Yeah, we did it live on Disco Lady
We
Ada
did it
before.
on Disco Lady Ada. It's for very small boards. But if you are making these small development kits, you're making like toe moves or whatever, or like nanos, this will do the job, and it heats up pretty fast. In about 2 minutes, you'll get up to 240. It can do leaded and lead free, no problem.
Yeah, someone said, you just buy a bunch of these, put a sticker on it, start a Kickstarter, and it's your own like personal s'more device.
Yes.
Yeah.
For s'mores.
That's the second product that you're going to see later on that you saw first on a electronics show. The screen, the reflective screen, and then the
Okay, so I think what I'll do now that we've
The mini hot
we've
plate.
seen it, I'll
I can actually see the little smoke going off.
There's a little bit of smoke. I want to be careful because I don't want to damage this.
Yeah, and now it's red.
Now it's red, so you can see the red light. So let me
You're going to zoom in.
focus in.
Do you want to zoom into it and show that it's like starting
Well,
to
I
do
think
stuff?
I have to bring this out a little bit.
Good.
Let's bring it out. Pull
And
it
then
down.
focus.
Yeah, autofocus. Whoop, what did you do?
I didn't do anything.
Oh man, it might not.
It's either like all or nothing today.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. I don't know if it doesn't if maybe the heat's confusing it. Okay, so there you go. So as it gets up to 240, I can sort of poke the parts with this maybe. Let me see. Oh, I think I have to tell it I want to go even higher.
Yeah, you can tell that it's hot right now.
It's definitely hot though. One thing I should have done is probably read the manual. But it's at 220, which is lead solder, but this is lead free. So I think I need it to, okay, now it's going up to 220, 225, 230. So you're going to actually start seeing stuff really melting here.
Let me see if I can zoom in on it now
That
we're in okay zoom in territory.
I don't know.
Yeah.
240?
Yeah, you can see it. Look. You can see it going around the resistor there. See it melting?
Yeah.
Yeah, look.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much more
This
I
is
can go in.
exciting.
Yeah.
All right, I do want to, yeah.
I can't zoom in more, but live reworking.
Yeah. So you can remove parts
Yeah.
very carefully.
So we're gonna part off, and then while you're still doing, I was gonna say you could see. I was gonna show that it's red
The
underneath.
red LED.
Yeah, so you could see that's when
You
it's
gotta be
hot.
careful. This is so hot.
Yeah, it's this like
It's 250. So I'm gonna unplug it and be very careful. So just be super careful because this thing is like it gets hot. I mean, it's small, but it's powerful.
yeah.
It will go up to 250, 260 degrees C. That will toast you. So don't do
Yeah.
what I did. Don't flick off parts with your
It's
finger.
a terrible idea
I
to
do
even
that.
try to do live demos with this stuff. Live demos in general. This is why no one does live demos.
Don't do that.
But we did it and we showed it to you, so it worked
But
out.
you can do it. But basically, I've reflowed like little boards on it.
Yeah. All right. Next up.
Okay, next up, this is the revision. This is the AMG 8833. So we've had this thermal camera for a while. Now the thermal camera just has a STEMMA QT connector, so you can plug and play it with any of our STEMMA QT interface boards, including the CyberDecks we're about to show. Or, if you've got a Clue board, you can plug it in and then have make a little thermal camera. And what's nice is that for a while it was actually tough to get thermal cameras, but it's starting to become a lot easier to pick them up now. So if you've been wondering, like, hey, how come I can't get thermal cameras? During COVID, it was like impossible to get them.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to come back
So
again.
we still do temperature screening every single day. Like I know everyone's temperature at Adafruit. We have our teams work on that to make sure every day when folks come in, they don't have a fever. I do think that, years from now or months from now, as people kind of look back at this pandemic, the fever thing really didn't become a way to determine if someone had it because it was asymptomatic. And I think one of the things that would have been better would have been a portable smell test, believe it or not, where when you walked into a building, there was a few different scents.
Like somebody with like a rotten milk and they're like, smell this?
No, just a few different scents would be in the area. Like you would put your head just closest you do for a temperature sensor, but it would be like, what's the smell? Because that seems to be, or at the time, especially during peak, a lot of people lost their smell, and that would have been a way to say, okay, because temperature just didn't seem to be a thing. So that's why, long story short, we have more of these in stock.
That's right. Maybe because everyone agreed with you now. But yeah, it's the same chip, the same schematic. It's actually even physically the same size. We did rearrange the pins a little bit to make them in our STEMMA QT standard. And of course, they have the plug and play connectors on the end to make easy thermal camera projects.
The stars of our show tonight, besides you, lady, of the community, our customers, and our team here at Adafruit, are the CyberDecks. We had 2 of them.
That's right. Although the CyberDeck bonnet was probably going to be in stock tomorrow, but if you're not watching this live, then it's probably in the store. So we've got 2 CyberDeck bonnets. These are plug-in boards for the Raspberry Pi 400 that have these really cool angled sensors, angled headers. And the angled headers mean that when you plug them into the Raspberry Pi 400, you get the display coming out at a jaunty angle. If it was flat, it would stick out. You wouldn't see it. If it was completely upright, it would be not easy to see it either. But it's at like 30 degrees, which we scientifically determined was the best angle. So there's 2 versions. There's the bonnet version, and we're showing it here with our OLED bonnet. You don't have to use it with the display. You can use it with like literally anything that's like mini Pi Zero hat shaped. But we happen to think the OLED is a good demo. It's got this beautiful silkscreen by Phil B shown here. And then
You want to go back on?
yeah, because I'm talking about the CyberDeck bonnet. It has mounting holes, so you could attach, any, again, Pi Zero hat or fat or mini hat, whatever you want to call them. And then there's connectors on the sides. So you get 2 GST PH connectors. These are 2mm pitch connectors. You get power ground and then either pin 18 on the left or pin 13 on the right. And then there's 2 STEMMA QT connectors above those. So if you want to like plug and play that thermal camera, for example, or our sensors or OLED displays or whatever, you get 2 connectors for I2C on the CyberDeck. So that's the CyberDeck bonnet, right? So that's for the smaller boards. And then we have the CyberDeck hat. Same thing, you get those connectors on it, JST-SH and JST-PH for connecting I2C or other boards. And then you've got, that 30-degree angled header, so it plugs in nicely into the Raspberry Pi. And then here it is, for example, with a Sense hat. So, if it's a hat-shaped thing, it plugs in quite nicely. And again, it shows it at an angle. So if you want to use a Sense hat with a Raspberry Pi 400, which, it has sensors and a display, and you don't want to have it like dangling off a cable, you plug this in and then it kind of holds it up at a nice angle. So I've got a demo with it on my Pi 400. So this is the Pi 400 with the CyberDeck bonnet plugged in right to the bottom here. And then
if you want to see the angle,
the angle's kind of tough to show,
Yeah.
but you can see it's
you can tell.
kind of coming up. So you see like it's actually an original Pi 1 hat. And then you can see the text very nicely while you're typing on it. So this is kind of my example of like, okay, I want to, hack a system by pinging it. Okay, I can do that. I even did a thing where I wanted to, let's see if I can links to Adafruit. I was like, okay, well, you can always put a graphic interface on it, but I thought it would be kind of fun to show it with text. Oh, too much. Back off. Okay. So you can even search for a CyberDeck. So you can browse the internet. And maybe find the text version of this product. Hold on. I was just having fun with links. Okay, here you go. So I can now go to the product page for the product on the product in text.
That's right.
I'm going to zoom out. So let me Control X. Quit. Hold on. Yeah, I'm going to quit. I still remember how to use links after like 20 years. And then you can do, you can also show, animations and graphics. I got like a wallpaper to show just some, you can have it display stuff, GIFs, whatever. All of our examples already work because all it's doing is adapting the Raspberry Pi 400 to hold our existing hats and boards. Normally it's plugged on top of a Raspberry Pi 4, but now you get it at this, again, nice jaunty angle. So maybe you want to go to the...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, maybe we can see, yeah.
I think this is the best way to show it. So, yeah, you see it's like...
Yeah, there's other products out there, not from us, that go up and down. We wanted to make sure when we launched this, it had a really good angle. So this is it's super readable. It's really cool. It is super cyberdecky.
Cyberdecky. So make your cyberdecks, or just connect things to your Pi 400. I think this is great. We tried a couple different angles. It does have a little bit of adjustability. You can like move it up and down by about 5 degrees, but it's very solid. And then of course you can use the accessory ports to plug in other hardware. But I think like if you want to just make like a cool add-on for your, it doesn't have to be a display. I personally like displays, but it can be almost anything.
Yeah.
You get the bonnet and the hat, 2 versions, and it'll just work with anything because all it does is bring all the pins out and up. Like it's all it does is a mechanical adapter.
Yeah, if you're using a Pi 400, I think this is a good secondary display for like sensors. You could do a lot of neat work on the screen and then look over at your little mini screen and see what the microcontroller stuff that you want to do.
Yeah, I think this this is so much fun. I mean, you can have HDMI and OLEDs, or like I said, the Sense hat, right? This is a common add-on for the Raspberry Pi, but how would you use it with the 400? I think this makes perfect sense because you can still use the buttons and the sensors.
Be a visualizer. There's all sorts of things you can do.
Yeah.
And with that, it is new products. Okay, we're going to roll right into... you can put your questions up in Discord, adafruit.it/Discord, and join all 27,000 over there. But while we're loading up some questions, we're going to do some top secret.
Okay. Oh, yeah, shoot. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, here it is.
Okay, so top secret this week, Lady Ada, what do you have?
Okay, well, so I still have the Pi 400 here. So I made this, hold on, let me get the Pi 400 out of the way. And then this is not plugged in. That's why it's not working. Hold on.
It's super top secret.
Hold on, it's so top secret, I forgot that I have to plug something in. It doesn't work without power, it turns out. Okay, so I'm thinking of doing some like a home automation board. I wanted to make a board that would work with, oh, don't tell me this isn't working either. No, it wasn't on. Okay,
Let's
you can do it.
Back
There
it
you go.
up so we can see that it's
Okay.
a house.
So after being able to turn stuff on, it's got this little debugging cable here. So this is I wanted to make a board that's for like home automation that could work with Home Assistant or Raspberry Pi or on its own to do like home automation projects. And we've done like IoT projects, but I want something that specifically was for interfacing with Home Assistant or like hue lights or like people who want to automate stuff around their house. Because I think a lot of people have been indoors a lot for the last couple of months, and maybe they have projects that they're like, you know, I want to be notified when my dishwasher is done or when my cat comes in, you know, through the cat door or something. So I made this little board and it's house shaped, and we're going to design like a fun silk screen. This silk screen is like my stick figure quality. It's got our TFT screen here. It's got some buttons. I'm playing around with capacitive touch for the first time. So this has a little capacitive touch slider. And still working on the design, but I think the slider's okay. I mean, you don't get huge resolution, but it's enough that you could like turn something, you know, up to 8 levels. And then there's 2 little cap touch buttons here, and then there's a little cap touch button here. And there's a LED, and there's like you can see there's 5 dot stars. I'm just having them flicker random colors. There's some sensors. I put a doorbell here. So this is the reset button, but it's a doorbell. So I guess if you want to like ding dong, like wake up board, you can hit that. And then there's a little buzzer and on off switch and some sensors. And on the back, I got my ESP32S2 and a bunch of socket connectors for sensors and STEMMA QT. There's actually not a lot going on in the back here because it's capacitive touch switches. You don't really want to have anything behind them. So that's why a lot of the PCB is bare and it has this hatched silk screen. So, you know, what's cool is that we have ESP32S2. It's native Wi-Fi support for CircuitPython, and I feel like with the MagTag we really kind of nailed down getting Wi-Fi support for the S2. So I want to do some more products. I mean, I'm doing the feather boards; those are coming out. But you know, I've always wanted to have a home automation design, and here's a cool trick that Phil B came up with after I designed it. He said, you know, it's basically the same size as a Raspberry Pi, so it actually is, even though it's like pointed up here. The envelope of it is the same size as the Raspberry Pi, and the mounting holes are the same too. So you can even mount this on top of a Raspberry Pi to have this be your little accessory board
That's cool.
to work directly with it. Like it could act like as a shield. It wouldn't plug in through the shield connector. It would plug in through USB, but it would still, like it would be able to plug in through the connectors. So
Yeah.
it's not out yet, don't ask.
Okay, that's top secret. Okay, I have a bunch of questions lined up, so we're going to speed around some, and we'll spend some time on some others. All right. First up, this was earlier in another chat.
Yeah.
How to design a charging power bank module PCB.
Well, we've got a couple different chips in the shop and boards in the shop. I think you want like a Power Boost 1000C. That's pretty much a charger bank controller. You just plug in a battery and then you can charge, boost, control, all that stuff.
All right, and this next one, someone gave a better answer, I think, than we could. So I'm going to just do the question, then I can do the answer. Someone has 0 experience in electronics EE. They're currently in school as an adult in their 30s, trying to obtain an EE degree. They're about halfway there. They'll be almost 40 when they finish, should they quit. And someone said, I started programming at 40. Thanks, Adafruit. Went through a web development program, and now I am an embedded software QA test engineer, so you'll be fine. So I think that's the best thing, is to hear from the community, from other people. Never too late to do anything.
The thing is, things are moving so fast, by the way, that it's not like, yes, it's always good to have more, like, if you learn earlier, sure, that's great, but it's not like you have 40 years to catch up on. Like, you don't have to catch up on it because things are moving so quickly that the kind of embedded stuff that I learned in school, honestly, it's not that practical. Like, I learned MIPS assembly. I don't write any MIPS assembly. It's okay. Like, I could have just skipped that part.
I think there's a lot of, like, that teaches you problem solving.
Yeah.
And that's a good skill.
Which you know as a 40-year-old anyways, because
Yeah.
just to get to the age of 40, you have to have, like, learned how to solve problems in your life. Right?
Okay, so I thought I was a good answer. Thanks,
Yeah.
for that. How hard is it to create a product from scratch from an STM32 chip? What is the process like?
It's not too bad. There's a lot of good dev and eval boards you can crib off of. You know, we have the STM32 F405 Feather. You can use that. It's open source. You can base your design off of it. It's not too hard. A lot of STM32 chips are really similar, but you'll have to probably use their IDE. One thing that is true about the STM32s is, like, it's kind of, there's one way to program them, and the IDE is the way to do it. That said, it means all example code you're going to find is going to work because it's all meant for the same IDE.
All right. Have we ever built an automatic cat or dog feeder?
Yeah, we have a guide.
Okay. Learned
Dano did it for
Adafruit.com
his
that.
cat. It's a very cute cat.
Can you use voice commands with a Raspberry Pi?
You can. There are some voice command tutorials. We have one for Google Assistant. Like you can make your own Google Assistant. There is some voice recognition stuff. I would just Google around for voice recognition on a Raspberry Pi and just follow those tutorials.
All right. Next up, how do you check to verify flight controller design is good before moving to a PCB design?
Well, I don't do flight controllers, so that I don't know.
Yeah.
But how would they verify it? I mean, I would do prototypes, on a breadboard, and then maybe solder it onto a breadboard, and then
permaproto it.
proto it, and then you can make your first PCB. But it's normal to have 6-7 revisions of a PCB, so
Yeah.
don't feel like it has to be right the first time. I don't get it right the first time.
Do you test a microcontroller dev board with different sensors, then combine the sensors, motors, etc. after everything works okay? Then you go to PCB?
No, I do something a little bit different, which is normally when I have a new component, I'll make a breakout just for that component. And then I will learn by doing that breakout how that chip is expected to be used, and then I would use it in a product. So, for example, this board uses a 1.5-inch TFT. So when I first got this TFT, the first thing I did was make a breakout board for it, just to connect it to an existing feather, learn how the display wanted to be used, and then once I felt comfortable and I had a good footprint, now I can add it in any product and I don't have to think about it.
Okay, about a year ago you posted a blog about someone who found a way to test UVC wands to see if the output was truly UVC. Two-part question. Any other tips for looking at an LED to make sure it's legitimate UVC, not just normal LED? And any trusted suppliers you'd recommend, or do you plan on stocking some? So, I still think the best thing is to get the testing equipment for it.
Or you can rent it, or there's
Yeah.
places you can send stuff and they'll test it for you because the equipment is not cheap. It is a couple $1,000s. There's really no way unless you have the equipment. You need to have something that's a very specific frequency.
And UVC LEDs, any plan to stock those?
They're actually really hard to get right now because they're still being used a lot, so we put that on hold.
Yeah. Looking back though, that's another thing. If you would have said, well, what are some of the technology things that you think are going to come out? I think because a vaccine was just an idea, it was like, oh my God, what we're going to do. There was a lot of let's get thermal cameras as doorbells. Let's replace fluorescent lights with UVC and just try to sterilize everything. And you really don't see that. You don't see that as one of the major deploying strategies. Let's UVC everything. There's UVC sanitation, but you don't even hear about that as much now.
What is the bakery place was supposed to have?
There was a
it?
bakery
And
in New York.
They said we're going to have UVC lights, and they never did.
I think
we
it was.
walked by there.
I think March, April of last year. It was just what are we going to do about this? How do we kill this thing in the air? And I think everyone tried just about everything.
Yeah.
And then the solutions that we ultimately have was mask and distance, and now there's a vaccine. But there wasn't really a technology solution to this initially. Next up, what screens were you using for the CyberDeck hats?
We got the OLED bonnet on the bonnet CyberDeck, and the 3.5-inch Pi TFT, or the Pi TFT series. That we have a couple different sizes of screens, and that's on the hat.
Okay. Can Ethernet Featherwing be used with a Feather RP2040?
Absolutely.
Okay. The new Raspberry Pi case, can you switch off the display while keeping the Pi running?
Well, the display automatically turns off after it's not used. You can set the delay time for screensaver mode, but the display does not turn off. I think you can turn off the backlight through a command, so you could do something like that.
Yeah, knowing what you know now, if you could do things differently in the past year for the business, what would you change? This is a tough question because if I knew anything about what was happening, so many people are dead and or suffering. So, our business survived. So because we did all the things we did and we did everything right and we took care of our team and our community took care of us, that's a hard one because if I had any type of go back in time or if you knew something, I'd be over 500,000 people are dead. And I
go to each one and tell them that. I mean, what would that even make a difference? I don't know.
So, there was a limited time where we could have had a really big impact, and I say we as a society and as a country to really mask up. In the very beginning, that could have slowed things down, and we wouldn't be in the situation that we're coming out of now. But as far as the business goes, we
I think we made all the right
worked
decisions.
around the clock. We did everything we possibly could to keep everyone employed and safe. It was really tough, though, and I wouldn't do anything different, but I will say this. There's consequences, like physically and personally. Like, this has been a tough year. We're exhausted. And then, we're starting to rally to turn the page. So it's one of those things where it's like, we had all of our team helping us make all smart decisions. So I wouldn't do anything different. But I will say, like, it came at a huge cost for all of us.
Yeah.
This hurt, and it'll continue to hurt for a while. And so the best thing I would say is maybe not do anything differently because you can't go in the past. But going forward, there's a lot of things that we help our team with and talk about being proactive, because there's a lot of crises that are going to come up in people's lives, and you can get ahead of some of them. So I think going forward, one of the things is like, hey, like for our remote team members that are in like Oregon, have a go bag because there was fires last year.
Well, you told them to do that. Like, it doesn't matter.
Well, but what you can do is just like, you can be proactive on some things that you don't have control over that'll just reduce the stress. Anyways, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
Next up, any plans to change the USB connector to Type-C on Circuit Playground Express? Lots of folks are using it.
Not because there are so many already. I don't want to mess with people, and a lot of folks still do have a lot of micro USB cables.
Is AdaBox opening up anytime soon? You can sign up because we're full, but there will be openings as we start to ship.
Yep.
On Dust of Gladiator, you showed a piezo strip from form kind of thingy. It was quite interesting. Is there a part number or place to look for that?
We'll stock it. I think we have them on order.
Okay. What would you do now or plan for near future to be ready in case another epidemic situation? So,
well, I don't understand. Why are we like suddenly responsible for like this entire country's epidemic response?
Because we'd probably do a better job. I don't know. I mean, I think we put people first and we care more. And I think everyone's trying to figure out, like, how to make sure this doesn't happen again.
All right. Maybe they're just asking for your advice.
So here's a way to look at it. So every time a disaster happens, one of the things I tell our team is, hey, in Texas right now, there's a, this was a couple weeks ago. There is a power outage. It is frozen. This is not good. Look at the stories that are coming out and think about if that happened to you where you're at, how would you deal with it? Do you have a go bag? Do you have a place that you can go to? Do you have all the contacts that you need to get a hold of? Do you have an alternate form of heat?
Yeah.
Where you live in a different part of the country. So anytime there's a crisis, don't let those go to waste. So that's how I'd say prepare.
Yeah.
Every time something happens, don't think, boy, I'm really lucky it's not happening to me. I think it's more like, how can I use that's going on over there, that pain and suffering for good here to help people to avoid that going forward.
Let's get all the questions.
Yeah, I think we got all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Someone gave us $10 on YouTube.
Sweet.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I think we got to all of them. All right, they saw the show and tell. They were a little down. Now they're happy.
Yay,
That's good.
that's good.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'll say one last thing. Kudos and shout out to Naomi Wu, who was on the ground in China, and we were asking her directly what's going on, what are they doing in China, and we listened to what she was saying.
Yeah, it was cool.
We're like,
It was cyberpunk.
good to know. So that was actually really, really helpful. Okay,
All right.
so that's our show for tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
Thank you to Kara, who is over in the Adafruit Slack chat helping out folks. Thank you, everyone, that's helping out in the community here. And special thanks to the folks in the different chats. We'll see everybody next week on Ask an Engineer, and I think I got everything.
Thanks, everybody.
Questions. All right, bye, everybody. Here's your moment of Zener.